We're going to take a look at the passive voice with the subject as. Before we do that, let's quickly review passive voice in general. So, passive voice. There's a difference between active voice and passive voice. Voice has nothing to do with tense. Okay? So, active voice is when the subject performs or does the action of the verb. Zum Beispiel, Susanna trennt den Müll. All right? The opposite would be, so she separates the trash. Germans being umweltfreundlich, right? You separate all your different types of trash. If the subject does not perform the action of the verb, so the garbage can't separate itself, then we utilize passive voice. So, der Müll wird getrennt, using werden and then the past participle. We could also include the agent, so the one who's actually doing the action of the verb. We could say, der Müll wird von Susanne getrennt. So that's the difference between the voices. But in passive voice, there's lots and lots of tenses. So let's look at these tenses kind of to help. Some we've seen and some we haven't, but it bears noting, and I think you can figure out the pattern quickly. So, present tense, der Müll wird getrennt. Simple past, der Müll wurde getrennt. Okay. Present perfect, der Müll ist schon getrennt worden. Past perfect, der Müll war schon getrennt worden. So maybe you notice what's happening here. Present, past, worden, similar to werden. And then with modals, both present or past, the modal is conjugated, muss getrennt werden. And if you wanted modal past, it would be musste getrennt werden. So just a quick overview of some of the passive voice. Now, the focus today is, of course, on what is this subject as. So, first of all, it typically means it, right? We see er, sie, as he, she, it. It's when we have an impersonal subject, nothing very specific. We see this a lot in instructions, on signs, und so weiter. And in English, we use it as they say, or one says, meaning we heard the information from somewhere before. It doesn't really matter who did it. It's just that proverbial they. We say in English a lot, yeah, one says, or one said. So here's an example. Es wird gesagt, dass heute regnet. They say that it rains today, right? So it is said is the same thing. So they say it's going to rain today. Es wurde gesagt, they said, it was said, dass er nett ist, that he's nice. So we're still using werden, whether it's present or past, and we're still using the past participle. So nothing really changes too much. It's just instead of having something else as our subject, it's just now like as. They say, so as. So let's delve a little deeper. If we have multiple clauses in a sentence, so we have a compound or complex sentence or a compound complex sentence, sometimes we see this used even when as is the real subject. So, es werde heute viele Häuser aus Holz gebaut. So really what's being built here is the houses, right? So the houses are really the subject. But we see as kind of take over that a little bit. But it's not really the subject. Es werden heute viele Häuser aus Holz gebaut. You just see this once in a while, not too much. Es wird hier nur Deutsch gesprochen. So really in this context, German is really the subject, not really as. So German. Es wird hier nur Deutsch gesprochen, but we just see it. What we see more often used is this idea. So as can be used when it's the activity that's more important than actually who are the people who are going to be participating. So if we said something like, Es wird heute Nachmittag getanzt, we're really focusing on the dancing part, not like who's doing the dancing. Is it Hans und Heidi and Helga? Doesn't really matter. It's just like, hey, it's not they say anymore. It's just like, there will be dancing. So, es wird heute Nachmittag getanzt. There takes that es and then the dancing, the past participle. And of course, werden conjugated for es. Or in this example, es wird in letzter Zeit viel über die Bücher diskutiert. So it's not saying they say, it's, or they discussed, it's there becomes that as. There has been much about the books discussed, basically. So, diskutieren, the discussion. So that's another thing that we will see with es being the subject of a passive voice sentence, where the activity is more important than the people doing it. So try these out, okay? Was wird heute gemacht? What is done today? So I'm going to give you 5 things that are going to be done today, in a sense, and I want you to put them in passive voice construction, where es is the subject. Okay? So here's an example. Eine Geschichte erzählen. So a story is told. Es wird heute eine Geschichte erzählt. Alright? So that would be an example of the sentence. So kind of use this as a formula to help. Don't forget to conjugate werden for es. And don't forget to use the past participle of these verbs. And I will check those later. Viel Glück, viel Spaß.